The name's Power. Jim Power. Your typical 90s era game hero with a serious amount of attitude. Baseball cap? Check. Sunglasses? Check. A stance that suggests Jim eats a bowl of steroids for breakfast each morning? Double check. Jim only got the one game released in 1992 on Amiga and Atari ST titled Mutant Planet, which was then polished up and given a re-release in 1993 for SNES and MS-DOS under the name Lost Dimension. The SNES game plays very similar to the Amiga original, but the MS-DOS version does take it further and give Jim a life bar. More on that later. Today though, we are looking at the first Jim Power game in Mutant Planet, and in particular the Amiga version. The first thing you'll notice when the game loads is parallax scrolling. Amiga games are not generally blessed with much in the way of parallax, with most games just having a single scrolling playfield. Jim Power though gives us a fantastic 5 layers straight out of the box. I am impressed. The developer did get a bit carried away with this though, as the effect at times is distracting to the point of making you feel nauseous. Look at this jump for example. If it's not hard enough, the background is dancing back and forward. It's making me feel sick just looking at it. But anyway, there is nothing in the way of options for this game, so press start and straight into level 1. Colours. Colours. Green. Lots and lots of green. Different shades of green. Has anyone ever noticed just how painful a screen full of green is to look at? Couple this with shades of pink, brown, blue and white. So, in all honesty, this game's colour palette would not look out of place on a CGA machine, but on the Amiga, perhaps it's a bit of a letdown. The graphics are well drawn though, and do have a good amount of detail, plus later levels do make better use of the colours, so don't look as much in your face, but getting to see that is, well, a bit of a problem. This game, you see, is not what I would call forgiving. One touch from any enemy, or a spike, or even a drop of water, you're dead. Perhaps a little unfair. Yes, okay, we get 4 lives and a few extras per level, but a health system would have made this game seem much more forgiving. The controls themselves don't help, as like many Amiga games from the early 90s, Jim Power employs up on the D-pad as jump. If there is one thing I am glad to see the back of from 90s gaming, it is the insistence of developers using up as jump. Okay, the Amiga mostly used single button joysticks as its input, but it is capable of 2 buttons, and then even later multiple buttons with the CD32 joypad. If any game needs updating for multi-button support, it's this one. I suppose I could hack an old joypad and wire up to a spare button, maybe next time. Another nice feature of this game on the Amiga is its presentation of music with sound effects together in game. That might seem an odd thing to say, but for those familiar with the Amiga platform, you'll know what I mean. The music in game is absolutely fantastic and really adds to the gameplay. The soundtrack is definitely one of those that I'll be adding to my games mix for playing in the car. Yes, I am a sad soul, aren't I? Gameplay is a mixture of run and gun platform levels with 2 shoot 'em up type levels thrown in between. The run and gun levels themselves have a good mixture of platforming too, but I do really dislike that instant death thing as mentioned before. Some of the platforming can be a bit tricky, demanding a very precise jump, even requiring you to half land on platforms, which does seem a bit odd at first. Despite having to use up as jump, the controls actually are quite responsive. So once you get used to each level, it does become second nature. And that is the key to this game. You need to spend your time and learn the levels. Enemy types mostly run back and forward between the same preset points, with only a few in later levels actually firing projectiles. So it is easy enough to remember after a few run-throughs. I can clear most of the first level now easily enough. It's just some areas where the platforming is extremely difficult to get past, The aforementioned motion sickness inducing scrolling platform madness section springs to mind. It's all about taking your time, taking out enemies from a distance and timing the platform jumps perfectly. You can't take too much time though, as there is a 2-minute timer constantly counting down. Not too much to worry about though, as there are multiple time extension pickups dotted around each level. Again, it's all part of taking your time and picking all these up. The levels are broken down into different areas separated by doors, so don't forget to pick up those keys as well. The shooter levels are less forgiving, as you again have the single hit deaths, but this time the scrolling nature of these levels keeps you moving forward. Adding to the difficulty, enemies come at you from behind as well as in front, and all enemy types take multiple shots to kill. To be honest, these levels are bordering on impossible at times, and become more about dodging your way to the end, rather than fighting. There is no option to save, or not even a level password system in this game, so with your limited lives and the single hit kill, well, replayability does eventually become a bit tedious. Any good run and gun game needs a decent arsenal of weapons, and Jim does get his fair selection too. Each weapon can be upgraded one level to increase its firepower, then each new weapon is equally more powerful again. In all, Jim Power in Mutant Planet is a challenging platformer, a decent run and gun, but unfortunately a rather poor shooter. This was reflected in reviews of the time, with CU Amiga giving it a mere 74%, up to Amiga Computing giving it a very generous 90%. Personally, I'd put this game somewhere in the low 80s. The re-release, Lost Dimension, is a better all-round game, with better graphics and controls. The MS-DOS version is probably the better though, as it does away with that annoying one-touch kill. Lost Dimension is currently available on Steam for $3.99, which comes with the SNES and DOS versions. Certainly cheaper and more accessible than the original, which seems to demand a fairly high price on eBay. In any case, if you get the chance, Jim Power certainly is a game worth looking into. That's all for this episode. Thanks very much for watching, Casual Retro Gamer, and I'll see you next time.